presentation. So we'll be moving now to our next training. Oh yeah, did they, Deepa and Vinod? Yeah, they got, right? They were very good. And Vinod in the back. Awesome. Okay, thank you. So next workshop and training is going to be from Anindita Chowdhury. She has 20 plus years experience in immigration. She's coming from USI Law, one of our gold sponsors. And she leads her firm from Maryland, but has offices here in Calcutta. Her practice spans all industries. She crosses all the borders. She's everywhere. And she's a very strong advocate for her clients. You'll see as you listen to her, you'll know she's very passionate about her work. And she's also very good in automation and building processes and helping the clients get things done effectively, efficiently, and practicing using all these great tools that there will be a panel later about AI and other advancements in technology. So she'll be teaching us about RFEs, how to avoid it, and steer clear. So take it away. Thank you so much. Yep.
Can you turn it on? It's not on. Or is it on? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jake, for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. We were excited to meet you, considering last year we didn't have this privilege of attending the Zoom session. Umesh wanted to change it up a bit, and so glad that we see a lot of familiar faces in the room. Thank you for being here, and on behalf of all the speakers, I hope this would be something that you guys would learn from. I know we all share a common love of literally helping people, most importantly. What we do, which I keep on telling all the clients, my team when I train them, is immigration law specifically is you're helping not just a company, you're helping a human being, you're helping a family when, for the most part, the applicants have spouses and dependents. So what we do is very important, and therefore how we do it also matters. Specifically, there are companies of varying sizes, varying volumes of case processing that goes in to what we do on a daily basis. A lot of hard work goes into it. How do we just do it intelligently so that our work is streamlined, is to a certain extent reduced, and we get the deliverables that we are all responsible for, which is basically the approvals. And with the approvals come the transfer of talent, which all of you need to do no matter what the country is. And that's why we are here to work together, learn from each other. And the portion of the presentation that I have right now, leading from my colleague Purvi, who's given you a very educated, broad background of the H1 process, is the dreaded RFE. So it's my privilege to talk to you about RFEs and how, at least at USI Law, we do RFEs. I'd like to take a few minutes to just read the slide. We are all familiar with what the stats are as far as what we've seen specifically from, I would say, Jan 2017, which is immigration in the Trump era. There have been some significant changes, which by now all of us have experienced, maybe to our detriment, maybe to our advantage, depending on what your stats are, as far as whether you're working in-house with your teams or you're partnering with a law firm. So it should not surprise you when I read out the first two stats, which is basically that the RFE rates have gone up to at least 60%, filed for some Indian companies, I would say probably all. And overall, maybe 62% are approved after the RFE. Now, I would like to distinguish it from, one stat is for fiscal year 2018, the H1 visa approvals published by the USCIS has gone up by 84.8%. And there is the unspoken truth in this room, which all of you, I know, are familiar with, that there is a difference in the way IT companies who are non-American are viewed than IT companies that are either from India, China, and any other parts of the world. So that is also something that we work with and compete with on a daily basis, and something that we all should be aware of. Now, in comparison to that, I do want to take this opportunity to share with you USI Law, our firm's stats. For a major IT company, which doesn't give us 10 cases, it's in the thousands, the approval rate is 99%. And these are real stats. I mean, if you came and spoke to any of my team members outside, I was worried of how it would be taken. Like some people might say, oh, you're just lying. And I'm here to assure you that if the paperwork is prepared correctly, these are what we deliver, not for 10% of our cases, but 100% of our cases. And on an annual basis, if you look at volume, our firm processes anywhere between 4,500 to 5,000 H's, then a good amount else, in the lower thousands. So this is not that we got lucky with 10 cases or 50 cases. This is what we do for a living on a yearly basis, on a daily basis. There is some others that, with the volume increases, there will be a target on your back. If you're a large player, like I said, there is a target on Indian IT companies. There, the 96.4% approvals is something we've experienced. There is other reputation that we have is 90% of everything's getting RFE'd, which is not necessarily the experience that we are having, because 53.7, at least for the L visas, each visa is different. And I'm going to get into that in just a few seconds. Specifically for last year, 2019, the USCIS approved a record number of cases. These are the transparencies, actually, whether we like what he's doing or not, we have to give credit to the Trump administration, where the transparency and the stats are coming out, and 389,000 visas were approved last year. This particular slide, oh, okay, no, this is not going to work. I guess the monitor does not pick up on the numbers, but this is what documents, this is all from the USCIS website, documents of what we just talked about in the previous slide. Okay, now, how do we do it differently at USI Law, which I want to talk to you guys about? How can it be done differently? Can it be done differently? Or are these numbers fake? These numbers are not fake. It is dependent on how you prepare the petition. And I know Purvi dwelt on it to a certain extent in her presentation. When we prepare a petition, I will say this to you, as a team, we look for three things. We look for an approval for you. We look for, ideally, no RFEs to be generated. And we are fighting for a 3-year validity. This is ideally what goes into every petition. So with that in mind, how do you prepare a good petition? And I have not had the privilege of speaking to each one of you in this room, but all of you know there are different ways of filing a petition. Gone are the days where you can mail merge and cut and paste. This is not the way it works. If there's anything that the Trump government has taught us as a practice, it's quality matters. Whether you see it in your numbers or not, you need to go back and reevaluate how your petitions are being prepared from the get-go. And I'm saying this, very bluntly. If you think it has worked before, like my second bullet point is like, insanity is not doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It doesn't work in the real world. If you did it even in any other aspect of your life, you know that's not how the real world works. The documentation has to be aligned. Now, with the rule that came out in November of 2017, I remember reading it when I was literally flying over into Bangalore, the new rule, there is no deference given to the previous petition. You will have to reprove everything when you resubmit something. And that's fair. I think that's really fair. Because from the perspective that, you are resubmitting an extension or an amendment, whatever it is that you're doing, it is only fair to reprove that you, the petitioner, still have the work for this foreign national, the beneficiary. So therefore, if I can generalize and say a good percentage of the attendees here are IT companies. IT companies, as we all know, for A few that have their own products and develop their own products and maybe work at the headquarters is one aspect, but I think a lower percentage. The higher percentage are IT companies that place people at third-party sites. And there, in all fairness to the system, and we all know this, if you've been doing this for 6 months or you've been doing this for 26 years, we know how the system works. You just pretty much pick up a talent, process the visa, and then ship him or her off to the end client. That's not how the system should work. You as a petitioner are responsible for this employee. There is a concept, a right to control. There is a concept of an employee-employer relationship. So therefore, the documentation at the get-go should have these valuable components. And that is what we distinguish our way of preparing a petition. We will put that all in up front. It's for everybody who's been doing this for a long enough time. The INA rules have not changed. So I could tell you the 7 or 8 or 9 criteria that the USCIS is expecting when you are preparing a petition. Any petition. The L1 regs are separate, H1 regs are separate, TN regs are separate, whatever it is. So if the regs have not changed, I think it is our responsibility to prepare a petition in the best possible manner, which will give the petitioner, the employer, the best shot possible. That's at least the way we believe in preparing petitions. So, number one, as simple as, which I'm sure Purvi covered, the forms have to be prepared correctly. The right boxes have to be checked. But I'm picking up from where she left off, is what exactly will go into the meat of the document. The legal argument, in my humble opinion, is the support letter. That is what's going to sell you to the immigration officer who is going to make or break your case, or decide your case, with an RFE, without an RFE, RFE response, whatever it is. So in all fairness to that officer, where I tell our team, always put yourself in the officer's shoes. This might be the 15th or 17th petition he or she is reviewing. If you're doing the same job for the 17th time at 3:39 p.m. and you're looking at your watch because you get relieved at 5, you have to be kind to that person. So from that perspective, what do you do that will make the petition more approvable, more friendly to meeting all the criteria of the law, and then basically getting an approval? That doesn't mean we don't get RFEs, a lower percentage of RFEs, but however, even up to the extent of even highlighting certain integral parts. And I say this when we do 10 petitions, I say this when we even do thousands of petitions. It makes a difference. At the end of the day, I will speak on behalf of the practitioners or the lawyers in the room. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the petitioners who are hiring us to process your applications. So we have to put forth in every petition to the USCIS the best possible case at the get-go, so that hopefully there'll be an approval and minimal chance of RFEs. And then if there's an RFE, you reiterate certain portions of what is the truth, and then you get the approval. Eventually, the goal is to partner together to get that approval, so the business opportunity becomes viable. And the company then gets to transfer the talent, and the company makes money, to put it very bluntly. So it is an integral part of putting components such as whether it is the team leads, internally, if you're doing it in-house, if it's the attorneys, understanding the law, justifying why this candidate is the best candidate for the job, documenting accordingly that this is not a fraudulent employer. They actually have contracts, MSAs, SOWs, whatever it is, to justify that Mr. Joe Schmo is actually going to work in whatever company in Phoenix, Arizona, Tampa, Florida. You take your pick, because there's a true business opportunity. And if I were to be, blunt, our race, I guess if I can generalize, has been accused of fraud. We do know what the ugly truth is in the industry. It is just that it's becoming difficult more and more, and you should not do it. You have to justify. You can't just fly by night, put some documents, expect that to get approved. All of that happened all through the 1990s, the early 2000s. Progressively, we are seeing none of that works, and it should not. And therefore, to go back to what I was summarizing, what you put into a petition matters. Now I want to just go in per visa type, just to stick to some highlighted requirements, if I can say so. like I said, RFEs cannot be avoided, but we can minimize it. How do we minimize the RFEs? There should be accurate information on the forms. Certified LCAs, we talked about it, and that was one of the Kahoot questions also. Can and level 1 be denied? No. The answer is no. But since March of 2017, have we seen, starting with the computer programmer SOC code, and further, now they're crawling into the systems analyst SOC code, can the level 1 petitions supported by the level 1 salaries get RFE'd? 100%. And is the probability of denials higher? 100%. So you need to really justify why are you paying Mr. Reddy or Mrs. Reddy a level 1, especially if it's an extension after 3 years, which is basically you're trying to say that, oh, you've worked for the US team for 3 years, but we didn't give you a raise. It doesn't work in the real world. So with a 3-year additional years of experience, you can't be matching the same salary you started with 3 years ago. So if you look at it from a loyalty perspective, will a level 1 salary get denied? Can't guarantee. Denial possibilities are very high, and for the justification I just made. Now, if you bring somebody who's fresh off, supposing Osmania University, Andhra University, wherever university, and with 1 year of experience, could you justify a level 1? Absolutely. But how many of you are even hiring people like that? Probably 0. You will not hire somebody who's fresh off the boat, from college. You will hire somebody who's had some tenure, because obviously you guys know the market better than I do. It's a very competitive market, and you will target the cream of the crop. So now cream of the crop, AKA years of experience. Years of experience is AKA level of salary. So you have to be fair to the system. Understand how level 1 is equated as against what makes it level 2, and then improve your chances. The other big thing that they've really gone after is educational qualifications. Most of us, if I can say so, I think I can generalize, have candidates who have a minimum of a bachelor's of engineering. Now, if you have somebody who has a bachelor of biopharmacy, which is one case that pops to my mind, which we've had recently, with 16 years of experience, we will then try and get what is called an experience evaluation, which will make a specialization in CIS, MIS, computer-related field, but sometimes that is still not working. We've had a different case of a mechanical drafter, mechanical engineering for a bachelor's, for a case from Azerbaijan, and the guy has an MBA from the US, and they're threatening to deny. So they are going after the qualifications of the bachelor's degree. Be careful, analyze that before you just blindly file an H, because that's not working. Detailed support letter, I told you, all the ingredients of what we consider is what a USCIS officer will be looking for in an H must be there in your support letter. You cannot, I can't stress this enough, cut and paste a 2-page support letter anymore. It will harm you. And that is the primary reason some of you might be having a 90% RFE and a 60% denial. That's not going to work anymore. Mail merge is not going to work anymore. So, what do you avoid? SOC codes are super important. Each company is different. You have to see what works for you. Whether it is 1121, whether it is 1132, whether it is 1199. What some codes work for some IT companies will not work for company B if it works for company A. So those are very specific to your industry. Those are specific to the nature of your business. Those are specific to the clients that you're taking care of and you're catering to. And there can be threading all these the needle in all these sections, you can make a business argument of whatever it is that you're choosing. But it has to be an intentional, educated choice. It cannot be something that you've done in the past. And sometimes we also get this from foreign nationals who are going on an extension, where they'll say, oh, we've done this code in the past. Can you please tell the lawyer to process this again? Do not be, this is a harsh word, bullied, but you know what I mean. It's like, do not cave into what the emotional aspects of a foreign national's request is or demand is. You have to look at what will work for the company and eventually will work for the foreign national. Because just because he or she's had a systems analyst extension before 1121. It doesn't necessarily mean 1121 will work now, especially if he's not doing that job anymore. 3 years ago, he might be doing it, not anymore. And I know all of you, if I can generally say this, in your varying capacities, do have the pressure of dealing with a foreign national who's genuinely worried, who's scared, who's nervous. Because guess what? There are some companies that have, opposing counsel or competitors that we work with, and they're like, we'll get a denial. So my friend got a denial, so, just do it the same way. I don't want a denial. I don't want to go back home. That's the reality behind every petition. There is a very nervous human being. So for what we do collectively in this room, no matter what hat you're wearing, that's who your client is. That's who you're responsible to service, and eventually the company, no doubt. Availability of work and right to control, I've touched upon it a few minutes ago, where you can't just pack off somebody, ship off the person to the end client and expect that to be your only connection. You have no manager who reviews him or her. You have the end client, where they're even putting in timesheets in their database. It doesn't work like that. Then let the end client sponsor the person, not you. So if you're the person sponsoring the petitioner, it's not only the, the billing and the invoicing that goes at the end of the month that you'll just make money off his or her head. It has to be an employee relationship. There has to be a right to control. I've talked about the beneficiary qualifications already. To switch out to ELs. ELs is another, genre of visas that we are very worried about. Most of us are guilty of this. When the age cap is reached, you do look at ELs. Please, 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 again, there's criteria. Don't just let team leads, project managers, sales heads pressurize you into, just considering this person, tell the lawyer to just prepare the paperwork, or if there's an in-house team, just prepare the paperwork for the sake of getting an L because the age cap has been reached. No. Most of us know that's exactly the ugly truth that goes into sometimes reclassifying visas. That is not the way it should be done. So here, when the L1A is clearly the category for managers. To touch base real quick for 30 seconds, what do you mean by managers? It's somebody who was in a managerial capacity in the company, aka if it is in India or wherever in Timbuktu, in a managerial capacity for a period of a minimum of 365 days. And then if you look at a manager, there could be personnel and functional. I'll go into personnel a little more. There has to be a team. There has to be managerial job duties. There has to be subordinates that you have to prove that this person had the ability to hire, fire, appraise, do leave approval requests. There is a structure to how you're a manager in the real world, And similarly, the position offered in the US has to meet the similar criteria. Is the position being offered to this candidate abroad or in the US is he going to be a manager? Is she going to have a team underneath her? Is she going to have managerial responsibilities? And who are the subordinates beneath them? If you can structure this in this manner, I am guaranteeing to you, because of our results, you will get approvals. That's a no-brainer. Now, if you put somebody who doesn't have any subordinates for the sake of transferring him or her, why should it work? So, the forms, again, are accurate and complete. The detailed support letter should go over everything that I just detailed. Emphasize the manager. There are some executives, very few, obviously. The C-level executives would be the executive category, not the managers. Include evidence. That's a big deal. Include evidence so that it's irrefutable that this person is actually doing everything that you actually put in your support letter. L1B is, the most notorious type of visa where we see the most denials. And that is because if your company does not have what is considered to be proprietary tools, I will tell you, don't try it. You're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, and you're creating a black mark against this applicant's immigration history. What is proprietary tools? You cannot say SAP unless SAP is in the house. You can't say SAP is your proprietary tool. You cannot say Oracle is your proprietary tool. You have to prove that whatever version that has been created, maybe on that platform, is your company's proprietary tool. You have to show us white papers. I know India has an issue with patents and stuff like that. If you have patents, all power to you. but you show me white papers. You show me reviews of Gartner reports and everything. Show us whether this is a credible and legible case, and then the success will follow. This is a category, especially for those who are blanket filers, you guys know that this is a highly denied category. If you don't have your own products, different companies have different business models. So if you're trying to wing it by showing, oh, you know what, it's a client's proprietary tool and we've had training, you deserve the denial. Very simply put. So you have to prove it is yours. You have to prove how this person's been trained. You have to prove with a detailed explanation how this particular candidate that you're selecting to sponsor has been trained in this, has been performing in this, and will work in the US on this tool. You cannot have somebody come in and then work in Java, XML, UML, J2EE, JavaScript. No, that's not your tool. That's an H1 job, not an L1B job. So that is why also, and training, and these officers are very, very, very good at sniffing out if you lie. Because they'll have those in-person interviews, and then it'll be exposed that this guy knows nothing about the so-called proprietary tool. He or she's going to go to work on Java XML, and that's not the visa you should be using. Just because our section just dealt with, RFEs in general, I did want to take also a little bit of time to go over I-140 applications, which is something else that when you go into the EB section, the employment-based section, we have. The biggest one we see, if it is an EB1C, which is some of you might have experience doing or requirements doing, it will be a combination of three things. It'll be a combination of proving that the person was a manager abroad and whatever the managerial job duties, which I just dealt with in a few minutes ago, or the person's currently a manager, and last but not least, the ability to pay. Sometimes even if you throw in an annual report, which is documenting the company's only made 19 billion, they still will ask for financial ability, because clearly somebody's not reading it. Alternatively, sometimes some RFEs we see you have to prove the corporate relationship between the company abroad and the company in the US. These are the standard kind of stuff we see for an EB1C. EB2, EB3, they've really started zoning down on ability to pay has always been the case. So if you have a smaller company, you'll have to share the tax returns. If supposing, hypothetically, if there's a prevailing wage issue, what do I mean by that? The person's making 50K, I'm just making this up on the spot, and the prevailing wage should be 86. You will need to prove how are you going to pay the difference of 36K upon receipt of green card, but you have to prove that today, from the date that you filed the perm. That's just the way it works. So in your tax returns, you will have to show an additional amount of 36 to cover that gap. That's ability to pay. We make sure, the skills on the perm are documented in your I-140, whether it's through educational qualifications, a reliable credential evaluation, and also experience letters. Of late, we've gotten to see, as I joke about, most of the Indian companies, if I can generalize and say, we always, once a person leaves, gives this, certificate of experience, which is basically date started, date ended, good moral character, goodbye, good luck. Those letters don't work. Those are not experience letters. Because essentially in the perm, when you're putting in, you need to have 5 years of experience in designing, developing, computing, consulting, whatever IT applications, and, years of experience in Java, J2EE, XML, UML, blah, 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 or any of the SAP models, SDM, MM, PPFI, you need to have all of that in some letter. If you have more than one, just cover it together. A generalized letter will not work for you. And we are seeing some, very few RFEs, because we are pretty much particular about making sure all the skill sets are there. But then when a consultant cannot get the experience letters, because sometimes they've left on bad terms or whatever, there are ways around how to get that, we are seeing some RFEs. Credential evaluation, what is that? For most of you know this, if you have a foreign degree. So non-US degree, you must, at this stage, it's not a requirement for the H or the L, I-140, you must equate it to what is equivalent to a US bachelor's. We had some questions that we had put up in our PowerPoint. Oh, you have that, okay, cool. I don't know whether you guys had the chance to review these, but in general, for those who are getting L1A RFEs, what is the kind of RFEs are you experiencing? Whether it's ability to pay, whether it's managerial position abroad or US, company-related RFEs, or anything else? How should we handle this, Jake, as far as questions and answers?
So, yeah, people, does the Slido come back in and post your thoughts? If you process L1 cases, what's your experience with the RFEs? Slido is hashtag INSZoom, hashtag INSZoom. So log into Slido again.